I hope you're able to hear.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Just give me a minute. Yes. Okay. So today we'll be starting the mechanical properties of fluids. Okay. So that is the 10th chapter. So the topic of discussion is mechanical properties of fluids. Till now we completed what are the mechanical properties of solids, right? So for solids, what did we see the mechanical properties as? We saw the concepts like stress, strain, and the ratio of both stress and strain under the within the elastic limit. All those things we saw, right? Based on which we defined Young's modulus. Then we defined bulk modulus. You guys remember this? So Young's modulus is defined as longitudinal stress divided by longitudinal strain. Bulk modulus is defined as hydrostatic stress divided by volumetric strain. So all these things came into existence, right? So from these properties, they will try to extend the same thing and see what are all the mechanical properties that fluids have. Just give me a minute, okay? Yes. Okay. So before that, we need to see what does a fluid mean. Can you guys tell me what does a fluid mean?
Fluid can be a liquid.
So fluids are substances which can flow, right? So a fluid is a substance that can flow. The next thing is a fluid ultimately assumes the shape of the containing vessel because it cannot withstand something called as shearing stress. So what do you mean by shearing stress? Suppose I have a liquid column like this. Okay. Suppose this is the book the other day I showed you, right? If I apply a tangential force here on the top of a book, okay. So if there is a horizontal force applied on top of it, then what will happen to a book? The book will take the shape like this, right? So is it possible for you to hold the book in that particular shape for longer duration? If say you're holding the force constantly, is it possible for you to hold the book in this shape? Provided your force is still acting on the object, which is not going to tear the book. My only question is, will you be able to? Yes, you can hold it, right? Because it has a property called as modulus of rigidity. Because this is a rigid object. Whereas if I do the same thing on top of a liquid, is it possible for you to hold the liquid particle at this position for a longer duration? Means, let's say you have applied the force on the liquid and the liquid particle has come here. Is a liquid particle going to be there always? Is it even possible for that liquid particle to come out of it in that way? Let's say it's bucket full of water. Okay, it's full of water. Will it be able to withstand the tangential force that you apply on it? When you apply the force, what will happen to the liquid? The liquid starts falling. It cannot be in a definite shape like how a solid is going to be. The reason why a liquid cannot have a shape of its own is because, if someone asks you, in technical aspect, it is because of the reason that it cannot withstand shearing stress. That is why you can say both liquids and gases are collectively called as fluids. Am I clear?
Both liquid and gases, sir.
Yeah, both liquid and gas. Gas also can't withstand, no, because the molecules are loosely bound.
No, but can you
Okay.
say that gas can flow, sir?
Gas
Flow
can
is
flow.
generally used for liquids, sir.
No. That's why the topic is fluids. It's called fluid mechanics. But though we say fluids, both liquids and gases are fluids. So substance which can flow. Gas will also flow, no? Diffusion is also a process of flowing only, no? Flow doesn't mean always like what is happening through a pipe. No.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Yeah. So that is why if you see both liquids and gases, they cannot take their shape on they cannot take the shape of their own. They need a container to take the shape. So based on all these observations, there are some important characteristics of fluids that are mentioned here. First, the atoms in a fluid, unlike solids, are arranged in a random manner. Whereas in solids, it's going to be in a fixed manner. Secondly, a fluid cannot withstand tangential or shearing stress for an indefinite period. It begins to flow when the shearing stress is applied. Means it cannot be rigid like a solid. Third, obviously, a fluid does not have a definite shape of its own. It ultimately assumes the shape of the containing vessel. So you cannot define the concept of modulus of rigidity also for a fluid. So fluids do not have modulus of rigidity. So name itself is saying no. So don't get confused, guys. There are two things. One is modulus of elasticity, and the second is modulus of rigidity. So modulus of elasticity can be defined for elastic materials. So if I ask you a question like, is liquid an elastic material or not? Answer is yes. Liquids have elastic property, but they do not have rigid property. So that's why we cannot define modulus of rigidity. The last point. A fluid can exert or withstand a force in the direction perpendicular to the surface. So liquid does have bulk modulus of rigidity. We saw this yesterday. What does bulk modulus mean? Ratio of
Hydrostatic.
Hydrostatic stress to volumetric.
yes, hydrostatic stress to the volumetric stress. What is hydrostatic stress?
Pressure.
Pressure. But how is it defined? It is the perpendicular force on all directions divided by area. This word perpendicular is very important in this chapter. That is why I see it's given like this. A fluid can withstand a force in direction perpendicular to its surface. It cannot withstand in the direction parallel to the surface. That is tangential. Am I clear, guys?
Sir, should we write this, sir? The important characteristics.
You can actually see this page alone. You can, if you want, you can take a screenshot. Or you want me to share it in the group, I'll do it. I'll share it in the group, no issue. I'll share it. Okay? Because I don't want you to waste time on all these things. So what is the difference between a liquid and a gas? So a liquid is generally incompressible and has a definite volume. And it has a free surface of its own. So for a liquid, what you can do, you can at least define a surface. That surface, we call it as free surface. What it is, we'll see it later. Okay. So two important points about a liquid is it is incompressible and has a definite volume. And so wherever you see the word incompressible, no, its volume is constant. And it has a free surface. Whereas a gas what can happen with a gas? Gas can be compressed. Right. So gas is compressible and it expands to occupy the space available to it. So how much ever is the space you give to it, it will start occupying that space because the gases get diffused. That is a property. Okay. So this chapter, though we call it as mechanical properties of fluids, this chapter is mainly called as fluid mechanics. Okay. So in fluid mechanics, we will be discussing two parts. One is called fluid statics and fluid dynamics. Understand, guys? Okay. So though I use the word fluid here, our concentration will be only on liquid. So when I say liquid, it is incompressible and it has a free surface. These 2 points should always be in your mind. Am I clear? So what do you mean by this fluid statics? This is a branch of physics which deals with liquids at rest. Okay. Sometimes this branch is also called as hydrostatics. Okay, this point is also actually there in this. So you're able to see fluid statics and fluid dynamics. So branch of physics that deals with the study of fluids in motion is called fluid dynamics, or we call it as hydrodynamics. Guys, am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we need to understand what are all the laws that we are going to learn in fluid statics and fluid dynamics. So in fluid statics, we will learn about the concepts of, so it is given here. See, we will read about the concept of hydrostatic pressure. We'll read something called as Pascal's law, Archimedes principle, flotation of bodies, and surface tension. So all these concepts are learned under fluid statics. Similarly, in fluid dynamics, we will read about equations called as equations of continuity, Bernoulli's theorem, and Torricelli's theorem. Also, we will see what is viscosity. Okay, this is a slightly big chapter, but yes, for sure you can understand. It is not very tough. Shall I get started? Shall I start? Now we will concentrate on fluid statics studies. So it's a branch of physics which deals with fluids at rest. So I'm going to introduce certain basic terminologies that are used in this. First, we call as thrust of a liquid. So you would have heard the word upthrust, right? In your lower grade, maybe in your 9th standard. Right. So where up thrust is there, up has direction, thrust is force. Okay. So what is thrust? Any idea?
What is exerted in a particular direction, sir?
A pushing force.
It is force in which direction?
In any particular direction.
It is perpendicular direction. Why I'm stressing on the word perpendicular again and again is because when you talk about a liquid can withstand the force which is perpendicular to it. Okay, we do not speak about any particular direction. Rather, we speak about force in perpendicular direction. If I have to simply call it as force, why would we unnecessarily introduce a term called as thrust? I could have told force of a liquid, right? The force of a liquid which is acting perpendicular to the surface is what is called as thrust. Okay, so the meaning of it is, if I have a liquid in a container, if I have a liquid in a container like this, then the force exerted by the liquid particles on the container will be perpendicular to it. That is the meaning. So to put it in other simple terms, the force exerted by the liquid surface on the surface in contact with it is called as thrust. And generally, how will that force be? It will always be perpendicular. Never forget this word perpendicular. So what will be the SI unit of it, guys? It's an obvious thing.
Newton, sir.
Newton, sir.
It is Newton. Right. So this is the first term. The second term that we need to know is called as pressure. So pressure is what we have learned in the previous chapter with a different name. We called it as hydrostatic stress. Now you would have understood why it is called as hydrostatic. Right. So pressure, how do you define it? Can someone tell me what is pressure?
T by A.
Sorry?
Force applied on a surface of an object.
So you should not use the word force, rather you should use something else.
By area.
It is a thrust per unit area is called as pressure. So pressure is equal to F divided by A, where F is perpendicular force to the surface. Okay. So secondly, you need to remember one point, that pressure is a scalar quantity. One common mistake that happens is when we write pressure is equal to force by area, many people think that force is in the numerator, which is a vector quantity. So pressure is also a vector quantity. But no, pressure is not a vector quantity, it's a scalar quantity. Why?
Sir, only it acts only in one direction.
Yes, sir.
Because you're taking only the perpendicular force. You're not taking all the random forces. Since you are very specific about the direction of it, we can call that pressure is a scalar quantity. And second important point to be kept in your mind is pressure at a particular point in a fluid. Pressure at a particular point in a fluid has same magnitude in all directions. That is, if you take a point within a liquid, pressure on this point, you try to measure the force from any of the directions. If say this is F, this is F, this is F, and this is F, then P will be equal to F by A. It is the same when you try to calculate it from any of the directions. So what is the SI unit of pressure? Newton
Per meter.
per meter square. Or we also call it as Pascal, which is written as PA. Pascal is the name of a scientist. So what will be the CGS unit? Dyne per centimeter square. That's a dyne per centimeter square. So what is the dimensional formula? ML minus 1 T minus 2. So this is all about pressure.
Sir, can you explain that this point, sir, pressure at a particular point in the fluid has same magnitude in all directions?
That's what I told. See, when you take a point, the force that is exerted by the liquids around, the force exerted by the other particles around that point will be the same in all the directions. So whether you write this F by A or this F by A, any of the 4 F by A's will have the same value. That is what I meant. Okay. Now listen. So ML minus 1, T minus 2. Okay, this is all about pressure. The next important term that we need to know is density. So next is we need to define density, which is given by the symbol rho. Okay. So write down the definition. You people know all this. So this density is also called as mass density. Okay. Or I can say it's volume mass density. So what is the meaning of it? It is the amount of mass present per unit volume. So density will be equal to capital M divided by V. Okay. It is a scalar quantity. An important note here, as liquids are incompressible, its density is always a constant. Okay. Next. The next important point is what is the SI unit of it?
Kilogram per meter cube, sir.
It is kilogram per meter cube. That's right. CGS unit?
Gram per centimeter.
Gram per centimeter.
Gram per centimeter cube. Dimensional formula? M?
ml minus 3.
That's it. You don't have time now.
T, yes, sir.
Yeah, T0. Okay, it is
0.
ML minus 3. Yes, yes. Okay, this is about density. All these terms you have learned already. Okay. The next term that we are going to see is called as specific gravity or relative density. You have heard this term also. So what do you mean by relative density? I told you in physics, relative means comparison. So when you're doing comparison, you can either do a comparative study by subtracting two values or dividing two values. So what do you mean by relative density? It is
Density of the substance by density of water.
okay. Density of substance. It is the ratio. It is the ratio of density of substance to density of water. This is where you need to be careful. Density of water at 4 degrees Celsius. There is reason for it. Because if you look at the properties of water, right? Density of water at 4 degrees Celsius is the maximum. And any idea about density of water at 4 degrees Celsius? It is 1000 kilogram per meter cube or 1 gram per centimeter cube. So gram per centimeter cube is also written as gram per cc. Cc stands for cubic centimeter. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
So density of water only at 4 degrees Celsius, it is 1000 kilogram per meter. Other points, it is not the same. Okay. So these are all the basic terms that we'll be using throughout this chapter. It is not related only to fluid dynamics or something, mechanics. We'll be using these terms throughout the chapter. Now we will see the next term, which is, now we will start seeing the laws, out of which the first law is called as Pascal's law. Okay. So a statement is like this. So write down the statement for it. A change in pressure, applied to an enclosed incompressible fluid is transmitted without loss to every point of the fluid, and walls of containing vessel. You write it down, I'll explain what it means. Okay. The alternate way to remember this is pressure in a fluid at rest. Pressure in a fluid at rest is same at all points if we ignore gravity.
So if we ask for a statement, can we write anything or only the first one?
Done? Let me
We ask
explain
for
what
the-
it is. Sorry?
If we ask for the law, can we write any of the statement or only the first one?
No. See, generally they don't ask the statement of Pascal's law. Nowhere it is asked. They will only mainly ask you the application. Okay. So what we are trying to say is, see, I'll take an example like this. Let's say you have a small tube like this. Okay. In this tube, let's say there is a liquid. I'm taking liquid for the time being because it is incompressible. So when we see the statement, it is like this. A change in pressure applied to an enclosed incompressible fluid is transmitted without any loss to every point of the fluid and walls of the containing vessel. So you need to have an enclosed fluid. Let's say there is a piston that I've kept here. If you want to know what is a piston, that will be there in a syringe also, right? When you push it, you can see the brown color part moving. Right? So if this is assumed to be an incompressible liquid and you're applying a force on a particular direction, observe. If I apply the force here, let me call this force as F1, then what do you think will happen here? So this is a piston, right? Piston 1. I'll call this as piston number 2. Understand, guys? When I apply F1, you have a cross-sectional area here because piston 1 will be like this. You're applying force on this cross-sectional area A. So can I say F1 by A1? Guys, am I clear? So what is F1 by A1? The perpendicular force divided by the area of cross-section will give us pressure at point 1. Imagine this like a syringe, okay? You will understand it better. Okay. So what will happen this side is what we need to analyze. So this side piston will be like this. It has an area of cross-section like this. It will be circular. Let's say the area of cross-section here is A2. Now tell me, this force F1, when it is applied sufficient enough, what will happen to the liquid inside? Is the liquid going to get compressed? Means, what do I mean by compression is, if suppose I take liquid particles, if I'm observing on microscopic level, initially the distance between particle 1, okay, I'll take distance between x1 and x2, if it is x. When I say it is getting compressed, the distance between x1 and x2, it should become small. Do you think that is going to happen for the liquid inside? Think
No, sir.
No, right? So imagine the logic I'm thinking of. So there is a particle that is going to be in touch with the piston here, right? Similarly, there will be another particle which is in touch with the piston number 2 here. Let us say there is an intermediate particle here. If I say the distance between these two particles is x1 and these two particles is x2, if the liquid has to be incompressible, what should be the value of x1 and x2 after I start applying the force F1? Should it be the same or will it vary?
It should be the same, sir.
It should be the same, right? But according to logic, what will happen is, see. So observe, let me say that this piston, the initial position of piston has moved here. I'm calling it as P1 dash. So what would have happened to the particle inside? If I call this particle as A, then A would have also moved by a distance. Am I right? So if I call this particle as B, then how much distance should, let's say this distance is Y that has been moved. How much distance should the particle B also move?
Same way.
It should also
Y.
move by this. It should also move by the same distance Y. B, this point will be B dash. What should happen to the particle C? Through how much displacement should it move?
Y, sir.
Okay, this is in order to keep what? In order to ensure that the liquid is incompressible. So this story is actually not needed. What I'm trying to say is, when you applied a force F1 here, you had no physical connection between piston 1 and piston 2 directly, but you're using the liquid as an intermediate medium to do what? To transmit the pressure that you have applied at point 1 to completely get transferred to point 2, as a result of which the simple mathematical expression that comes for this Pascal's law is F1 by A1, which is the pressure applied at which point? applied at
Point.
piston 1, F2 by A2 will be the pressure applied at piston 2. So according to Pascal's law, F1 by A1 will be equal to F2 by A2, provided the liquid is incompressible. Guys, am I clear?
So we can say P1 is equal to P2, sir.
Yes, that is a mathematical statement. Here P1 doesn't mean pressure 1, it is piston 1. This P1 is not, this P1 is the position of piston 1.
No, sir. F by A is pressure, no, sir.
Yeah, that pressure and this pressure are same.
Okay, sir. Sir, so F1 by A1 is equal to F2 by A2 if liquid is in any vessel, sir, like any vessel, any shape.
Yeah, any pressure provided this condition is satisfied. If that condition is not satisfied, it is not. If the liquid is not incompressible, yes, this is not applicable. So that is why you have to revisit the statement and see. So a change in pressure applied to an enclosed incompressible fluid is transmitted without loss to every point of the fluid and walls of the containing vessel. Okay.
Sir, can you explain the meaning of incompressible, sir?
The incompressible, it cannot be compressed.
Okay, sir.
Compressed means you cannot change its volume. Incompressible, you can't change its volume. Okay, this explanation I told you only for the sake of understanding. Don't use this explanation anywhere else. So this is a mathematical statement. That's what we need to understand. So listen, there is an NCERT question which is asked in this. I'll tell you. So based on this, one of the applications is called as hydrostatic lift. So if you observe, let's say I have a tank like this. Okay. So you would have seen in some mechanic sheds and all, when they want to repair the car under the bottom, when they want to repair the car at the bottom, right? What they do is they lift, right? They don't tie it to. There are two ways to lift it. What they could have done, they could have tied the whole car to a rope and they could have lifted it. But is that safe? See, suppose I have a car. The mechanic wants to repair at the bottom. There is some problem at the bottom. Okay. So if he has to go down, one thing he has to go under it, or if he wants to stand and work, then what he needs to do is the car has to be raised to a certain height. If it has to be raised, we could have thought of a principle. You tie the whole car across a rope and lift it. Use a pulley system and lift it. But by doing that, do you think it's a safe measure?
Okay.
Obviously not, right? Because we cannot rely on this particular rope always. And secondly, what will happen is the car will be shaking. It is not easy for him to work. So what they do is, instead of that, they take the help of Pascal's law by creating a chamber like this. And when there are two pistons fixed on either side of the chamber, okay, if I take this as A and B, if the force is applied this side, then what will happen if this is completely filled with some incompressible liquid, then what would have actually happened? this piston will start moving down and the piston close to B will start moving up. So what you can do is you can apply less amount of pressure here, less amount of force here and generate more amount of force on the other side. Okay, this is one of the applications of Pascal's law, which is called as hydrostatic lift. So if I call this force as F1, the area of cross section of the piston as A1, if this side I say the force is F2 and the area of cross section of piston as A2, then according to Pascal's law, there is only one formula: F1 by A1 is equal to F2 by A2. So based on this, what we will do is we will do a simple problem. No, sir. My device is a little slow today, kindly bear with me. So there is an NCERT question asked. So it is based on Pascal's law. In a car lift, okay, that's what the hydrostatic lift, what I'm saying. Or we actually, it's called as hydraulic lift. We call it as hydraulic lift. Okay. So in a car lift, compressed air exerts a force F1 on a small piston having a radius of 5 centimeter. This pressure is transmitted to the second piston of radius 15 centimeter. If the mass of the car to be lifted is 1350 kilogram, what is F1? What is the pressure necessary to accomplish this task? Okay, let's first visualize this question. What they are trying to say is, so listen. So there is a hydraulic lift like this. So in this hydraulic lift, what they are doing is, if it exerts a force F1 on a small piston having radius of how much value? 5 centimeter. This pressure is transmitted to the second piston of radius 15 centimeter on which there is a car which is kept. Okay. If the mass of the car to be lifted is 1350 kilogram, they are asking what is the force that is necessary to accomplish this task. Okay. So the hint here is compressed air. The meaning of compressed air is it cannot be further compressed, so it is incompressible. So when you use incompressible fluid, F1 by A1 will be equal to F2 by A2. Accepted? Which implies F1 by, what should I write A1 as, guys?
IR square, sir.
Yes, that's right. Be confident. So it is pi R1 square is equal to, I'll do one thing. I'll take this as small r, the other side as capital R. So pi small r square will be equal to, what is the weight that is getting lifted on the other side? It is 1350 into 10. Why did I write into 10? Because they have given us only mass, but we need force on the other side. Don't write 1350 by pi r square. Your answer will be wrong. You should write into 10 because it is the weight on the other side. Pi capital R square. So pi and pi will get cancelled. F1 divided by R square is 5 into 10 power minus 2 square. Here actually in this problem you need not change because both the sides in centimeter, but make it a practice that you deal everything in SI unit. So 13500 divided by 15 into 10 power minus 2 the whole square. So what gets cancelled? 10 power minus 2 is gone. So F1 divided by 5 is equal to 13500 divided by, 5 square is equal to 15 square. So this will be 5 into 5 and this side will be 15 into 15. We need not multiply it, things will get cancelled. So F1 will be equal to 13500 divided by 9. How much is this, guys? 1, 5,
0, 0.
so 1500 Newton. So you need a force of 1500 Newton on the other side. Means 1500 Newton means, see, for example, if you have a 150 kilogram object, if you place 150 kilogram object on the left hand side, you are able to lift an object of how much mass? You're able to lift the mass of 1350 kilograms. Clear? So what is the pressure necessary? So I asked about pressure also. So how to find the pressure? Pressure is equal to force by area. You can ask me which force and which area should I use? Use both, you will get the same answer. So if I use the left hand side, 1500 divided by pi small r square, that is 1500 divided by 3.14 into 5 into 10 power minus 2 the whole square. So this will give you the answer in terms of Pascal. Guys, am I clear?
Yes.
Okay. Next. We'll do one last problem, then we can find out. So this is also an NCERT problem. Let's see. The syringes one. So I'm doing only NCERT ones. So there are two syringes of different cross sections without needles. Okay, filled with water are connected with tightly fitted rubber tube filled with water. Okay, diameters of the smaller piston and larger piston are 1 centimeter and 3 centimeter respectively. Find the force exerted on the larger piston when a force of 10 Newton is applied on a smaller piston. So I hope you are able to visualize this question. There is a bearing. 1 minute, guys. So the syringe is fitted with piston of radius, how much diameters are given. So this diameter is 3 centimeter. The diameter here is 1 centimeter. Small d is 1 centimeter, right? So you apply a force of 10 Newton on smaller piston. So there is a force of 10 Newton applied on smaller piston. So 10 divided by pi small d square should be equal to F divided by pi capital D square. I hope you would have understood this by now. Y small d and capital D. It's easy for you to calculate the capital F, right? First part is easy.
Yes, sir.
Now comes the next part. So if you read the next part, they're asking if the smaller piston is pushed by a distance of 6 centimeter, how much does the larger piston move? So if I take it like this, if a force of 10 Newton is applied here, and this distance moved is 6 centimeter, the larger piston, by how much distance will it move is the question. So if I call this distance as y, see, don't make the mistake of this is 6 centimeter, means here also it will be 6 centimeter. Okay, that will not be the case. So if the area here is A1, here if it is A2, what is the important factor here is liquid is incompressible. So when liquid is incompressible, what is conserved? Volume is conserved. So what is the formula for volume? Area of cross section into distance. So area of cross section is A1 into x on the left hand side is equal to, what is the area of cross section on the second side? A2 into y. So what do you know? You know the left hand side. So pi into d square divided by 4 into x is equal to, x is how much? 6 centimeter. Is equal to, area on the other side is pi into capital D square divided by 4 into y. So pi by 4 will get cancelled. Find the value of y, that will give you the answer for the displacement of larger piston. Guys, am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, please make a note of this. Both are NCERT problems. You can look for the questions in the textbook itself. Okay. So if you have made a note of this, we can wind up. Just give me a minute before winding up. Don't leave.